Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm so happy to be here with Kimberly Gauthier.
Well done.
Hi, Kimberly.
Well done. Hi, how's it going?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm
Good.
waterlogged. It's raining like insanely crazy. Surprise, surprise here in the Pacific Northwest.
You're in PNW. Surprise, it's raining. Well, we have gotten to know each other over, gosh, maybe it's probably been a full 2 years. We have some really cool stuff to talk about, and what we're going to talk about, we're going to break this up into two parts. One show, two parts. And what I want to do is part one, this part will be, I want to talk about people preparing their own foods, people supplementing. I was inspired and struck by a recent post you did about supplementation, how you think of it and do it for your dogs. And I think thinking about it that needs to be talked about more, how people, there's a spectrum of people who don't think about it at all, and people who I think about it too much.
Yeah.
And when I say think about it too much, their anxiety is high. They're very worried. We get these customer support questions all the time. People are just very worried. And I have some reasons why I think that is. I've talked to some people about this. We probably will go into that. And then part two is going to be about Gussie's gut and your experience with fermented foods in general, and why you do not have to feed Gussie's gut, but you can ferment your own foods. So let's dive into part one. How about that?
Part one, let's do this.
Let's do this. So your first post, the post that I mentioned was just recent, as of the date of this recording, and it was about how you think about supplements. And so let's talk about how many dogs you have and their ages, and let's just start there.
Sure. I have 3 dogs now. Rodrigo, who was the inspiration behind Keep the Tail Wagging, sadly passed away in September. So we now have Zoe, who is 10 years old, Apollo, who will be 5 next month, and Bella, who just turned 1.
Well, thank you, Rodrigo.
Yes. Yeah. So, but yeah, and it's interesting about supplementation, because I remember when I was new to raw, and I started because Rodrigo was not a good candidate for a kibble diet. He was, definitely had leaky gut. It's interesting because back then he was just a very sick dog that the vet didn't think would live very long.
Yep.
Today, I understand that he had, leaky gut and low-grade pancreatitis that eventually turned into EPI. And there's so many things I wish I had known back then, but he taught me a lot over his 13 and a half years. And I'm grateful to be able to apply that to the dogs that we have in our home now. One thing being avoiding over supplementation, because when you're new to taking control of your dog's diet, it's so easy to ask the question, what supplements do I need? What multivitamin do you recommend? Because we're thinking about, one, how we feed ourselves as humans if we were to eat a healthy diet.
Yep.
If we're going to start eating a healthy diet, we're going to start taking vitamins and we're going to start taking supplements, because, the very profitable supplement industry has convinced us that something in a bottle, a pill or a powder, is better than fresh food. And we are now pushing that onto our dogs. And we don't even realize that we're doing it. I used to dive into those conversations to say, initially, here's my supplement list, because I used to drink that Kool-Aid too. And then I would dive into those conversations to ask, tell us more about your dog, because there is no one size fits all list of supplements. And in my humble opinion, no dog needs a synthetic multivitamin when they are eating a fresh food diet. But we don't speak enough about what our dogs needs, what we're seeing, and we're not giving ourselves the time and space to learn more about our dogs on this new diet to determine if they are going to need anything additional.
Hey there, this is Rob Ryan. I just want to say how much we enjoy making this content for you here. And if you are enjoying it, would you like our video down below? And would you subscribe to our YouTube channel? It sure does help us get discovered by more people like you who need information like this. And also, down below in our description, the top link is to our trial pack. We hope you'll order one for your dog so your dog can have fermented superfoods that give them nutrition like they can't find anywhere else. Hard to get nutrients that are easily absorbed. Thank you very much. Now back to the show. Once I learned, so I started my first dog, Buddy, on a raw food diet. And I immediately went, he had some issues. We won't go into the whole story. I've told the story before. Eventually led me to Marty Goldstein and Bob Goldstein, doctor veterinarians. And they both told me to read Ian's book. I said, I don't have time to read Ian's book, Ian Billinghurst. So I hired him by phone consultation. He taught me how to feed raw right from the get-go. And once I learned that, my head was the same as yours. I was doing supplements and stuff. Once I learned that, like, all of the crazy food-based nutrients that are in, like, just liver, or the skin of chicken, the skin, and then forget that, bones and the sinew and the cartilage and all of that stuff. Once I learned that, I started to relax, and I thought, okay, this makes sense. This is food-based nutrition, and it's also, over millions of years, it's been ancestrally, like, it's genetically coded in these animals. And it made less sense for me then to scoop a synthetic powder. I call these things synthetic biologics, and I call them that. Like, I try to be nice about a lot of supplements. You have to be, you have to cover the whole gamut of supplements. Some are very poor and some are good. But they're made in massive quantities.
Yes.
And in order to be profitable and make massive, you have to they have to be cheap to make. It has to be replicatable. You have to add a bunch of fillers in them, whether it be stearic acid or, those are called excipients, magnesium stearate, all that stuff, that rice flour, all these things you see in vitamins. You go, what are these other ingredients? Like, why is this in there? And then, so that made more sense. Liver, bone, the meat, the muscle, or the other organs for sure. And so I had the same inclination to go supplements, just as you did.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so easy to do. And the thing about it is, it comes from, we lack the confidence in feeding our dogs because we have a portion of the veterinarian community telling us that we can't do it, without even asking us how we're doing it. They're telling us it's not going to be balanced. Your dog's going to have to be deficient in nutrient. You should at least add a multivitamin. They're telling us these things, and these are the people who you trust to keep your dog alive. So you're going to listen. They do have influence. I think the things that got me to step out of these, that way of thinking are speaking to people who have been feeding raw for decades. So before social media, when they were just like the Yahoo groups where they're just talking to random people, they are figuring out where to get food from, and they aren't, like, balance wasn't even part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And yet their dogs were living these long lives. Their dogs were, enjoying the same benefits that we know about raw feeding today. We aren't hearing stories about, oh yeah, but then my dog had a zinc deficiency, so oh well. No, they did not have these issues. So I always remember, what would I be doing if I didn't have social media telling me that I was doing it wrong all the time?
Right.
What would my dogs be doing if they were out in the wild? Yep. And how are my dogs doing right now? I mean, that's like the most important thing. My dogs are thriving. And I had to learn to stop second guessing myself. And once I was able to gain some confidence in what I was doing, it also helped me have this conversation with my veterinarian. So when they would say, I'm not sure about raw because it's not balanced, I'd be like, oh, well, why do you think that? And we would actually have a conversation. I have managed to change every single veterinarian that I have worked with's mind on raw feeding. They're not out there promoting it, but they're fine with me doing it, to a point where I don't care if I go to a holistic vet or a traditional vet. I know that they will support what I'm doing for my dogs because they trust that I'm doing the work. The only veterinarian that I wasn't able to impact was a wildlife veterinarian, which shocked me because I thought they would be the first people on my side when it comes to species appropriate. Nope. They were like, no, you're insane. But it was just one wildlife veterinarian. But yeah, it's I feel like our lack of confidence and the beautiful marketing that is being done. I mean, you were talking about the ingredients. Another thing is when a supplement becomes popular and you start seeing, for instance, turmeric in everything, take the time and look how much turmeric either a human needs or a dog needs and compare it to what's in that supplement.
Yep.
And you will, I mean, it's like a pinch of turmeric in a lot of these supplements.
Yep. Well, yeah, exactly. And also how it's delivered and processed. I mean, there's so many little rabbit holes you can get into. You mentioned the word thrived. What is thrive? A dog that is thriving. What does that mean to you?
To me, that means that I'm not worried about my dog being sick. I'm not, I don't see the occasional limping or, their poo is solid. I'm not worried about digestive issues. Their teeth are gorgeous. We're not running in and out of the veterinarian for various, allergies and other, symptoms that dogs can experience. And granted, there are dogs out there that are on a raw diet that are living with allergies. To me, I feel like we are all on a journey to figure out what our individual dogs need. When I reach that point, that's where I feel like I'm thriving. And the best example is with Rodrigo, with Apollo. Apollo has leaky gut. I learned this because I had him tested. And I thought, well, what can I do to start healing his gut? And so I began, from my experience with Rodrigo, because he had gut issues and I was so focused on his gut health, I started doing this same thing for Apollo and really, alternating supplements, making sure to feed a diet that was going to support a healthy gut microbiome. So that means adding vegetables to his diet. And within probably a couple of months, all signs were that he was on a healing path. And I was able to do this without a vet appointment, without any type of prescription medication, just through fresh food and healthy, supplementation. And I think that is where the thriving for me comes from, is when I know that I can take care of what my dogs needs through the diet. I can just pay attention and adjust and adapt.
Yeah. My favorite word is resilience. Mm-hmm. And, whether you're talking about this current news item with this virusy thing that's going on, or just good old kennel cough, good old kennel cough, going to a boarding facility, your dog gets sick, or drinking out of a stagnant pond and getting, succumbing to Giardia, or any of the things that just, happens. If your dog has a full life, mm-hmm. you run into these things. Resilience is important. I think of thriving, and I'll add a couple things to your list because I agree with your list. I think of thriving as bright eyes. Mm-hmm. Love your comment about the teeth. Nice color in the tongue, gums, an alertness and a vitality. We hear a lot of customers call this joie de vivre. Mm-hmm. And they notice when their dog gets healthy again, they have a reborn like joie de vivre in their life. And that can mean they want to walk longer, walk more. their playfulness rebounds, they come
Yeah.
back, and you could just tell they're like, hey, I'm ready to live life, man. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
So everybody likes to see that.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. I know. Zoe is not, she doesn't play with toys really. And I always thought, she's not really a playful dog. She likes to go for walks, here and there, but she's kind of a couch potato. And one thing, I've learned that 3 dogs is perfect for me because I can actually focus on all 3 dogs. And one thing that I've learned over the past few months with Zoe is she likes to go walking, but she likes to be off leash. So I walk her at times of the day and in places where I know that I can walk her off leash.
Okay.
She also has an excellent recall and doesn't leave my side. So I'm not worried about that.
Yep.
And so she also likes a slow sniff walk. Like she wants to pay attention. She wants to see the animals. She wants to check out the critters. She wants to smell every blade of grass. So when I walk her, that's what I prepare for. If I need to walk all 3 of the dogs, we can't really do that to the level that she wants. So she and I will go on her solo walk. So we have a dog walker and Steven, who comes by twice a week. And when he shows up, Zoe goes absolutely insane because she knows that we are going on our solo walk. And yeah, so she waits, the dogs leave, Apollo and Bella leave, and she's jumping at me, hitting me with her, front paws, bouncing around, excited, barking, running back and forth to the door, ready to go. And as we walk towards the trail, she's running back and forth and barking and excited. And it's so nice to see my 10-year-old dog having that much excitement for her sniff walk. And then we go for our walk. And by the time our walk is so slow that by the time we get back, we basically meet Steven when we get back. But it's what she loves. And so that's what we do. And I love being able to do that for her.
Yeah. That's a specific, that's to, like a species appropriate diet. You're doing a dog specific, exercise routine. It's specific for her, to her personality, to her. That's adorable. That makes me feel really good.
Yeah. She does
and I've made a note that you said 4 dogs is maybe a lot. 3 dogs is right. Cause I'm one of these guys who, like, I have a dream of getting a property with a barn and having a bunch of stuff. Oh, you too?
I feel like we all do. I want like 40 to 50 acres. I always tell my friends that I want us to I'll build houses for all my friends, like my lottery dream, but I want our houses far enough away that I can't see them. Right. So that when I'm in my introvert space, but I want to be outside, I don't have to fake being kind to people because I just want to be by myself. And everyone will get a golf cart so we can drive to it. And then we'll have some common places where we could have the dogs together, uncommon places when we want to be by ourselves. But yeah, the idea of being able to, a friend of mine has 15 acres and she runs our rescue. And so there are times when she'll have like 15 dogs. And I'll drive up with my dogs and just kick them out of the car and go inside and have tea while the dogs just run and play. There's chickens, there's ducks, there's pigs. They're soon to be cows. I think in the next year or so, they're going to have cows. But, they get to explore. And when they get home, they're just like complete, like they have been fulfilled out. And just the idea of being able to create that, that would be heaven. That is heaven. I think every dog lover loves that idea.
Yeah. Well, then I play it out and I think, well, I gotta have a couple dogs in the house. I can't have 40.
Yeah.
So how do I choose which dogs go in with me? So that like kills my whole dream because I can't figure that part out.
Yeah. I know that 3 dogs is, I am in charge of the animals in the house. And I have found that, the most we've had is 5 and 3 is actually the smallest amount we had were 2. We started out with 2. So 3 dogs is perfect because it allows you to pay attention to what each dog is doing,
Yeah.
I know exactly what they like, what they don't like. I weigh my dogs every week and I can keep track of their weight. I know exactly. It's just so effortless.
Yeah.
And I could add another dog and be perfectly fine.
Mhm.
But right now, I'm really enjoying the fact that I could really focus and give each dog exactly what they need. Um,
That's great.
and have that one-on-one time when they need it, as well as the group time when they need it.
Why do you weigh them every week?
Well, actually, not every week, every month.
Oh, every month. Okay.
I weigh them once a month. Yeah,
Why do you do that?
because I am horrible about treats.
Okay.
And two of my dogs gained 2 pounds when they weren't supposed to. And so I have to weigh them just to keep myself in check.
That's fair.
And yeah, and then I have a puppy. And so it was like nice to keep her weight to see what she was going to end up being. We thought she was going to be, she's a Husky German Shepherd healer mix. We thought she was going to be a beast of a dog. She's the healer. She got the healer size. So she's a small little girl. She's 55 pounds. And so I wanted to keep track of her. Apollo, on the other hand, I thought he was going to be about 70 pounds. He's 80 pounds. So I'm trying to keep him right at or below 80 pounds. So that's why I weigh him. And now that we're going into the winter months, so we still will walk and stuff, but just the exercise changes because of the weather. I need to adapt their meals accordingly so they don't end up packing on the winter weight.
Okay. So let's take a left turn from diet to it's a tangent to this, which is, I know you as somebody who's had a blog for years and you have all this education on social media. It's part of educating people. You get feedback and probably a tremendous amount of questions.
Yes.
So do we. So one thing that struck me with Gussie's Gut is you can feel anxiety in the questions that people ask. And I feel so bad for, like, it's not hard to imagine you got a person who loves a dog or dogs, wants the best for them, and it's creating this anxiety. And I feel like, oh my gosh, like sometimes I'll see these were done at night and I'll be like, oh my gosh, these poor people had these questions at night. I just feel, I can feel it. And so what do you think about people who come to you with this anxiety? Like, how do you think about those folks? And, if there's any on here that struggle with, like, gosh, I don't know what to do, what to give, how much and all that. Let's talk to those people just a little bit.
I completely understand where it comes from. I feel like we are in the golden time of the fresh food community. We have so many options. Whereas 10 years ago, when I first started feeding raw, there were lots of options, but it was a small, tiny community. And, one thing that I noticed is that today we have, I was going to make a blog post where I was going to write down all the raw food brands. And it was pointless to do so because there's so many out there and I don't know all of them. No. They're just like, the Google search to try and track them all down was just impossible. And I gave up. Yep. But there are so many supplement companies, and not just like, the shady ones, but really good supplement companies.
There sure are.
I mean, when it comes to CBD oil, I can alternate between between 2 to 4 brands on everything. And they're good brands. CBD oil, the mushrooms, digestive supplements, dog treats. Oh my God, dog treats today are insane. Just the that was the first, just the blowout with the companies who are managing their own farms and doing these single ingredient treats and really starting to explore the entire animal and making treats out of things like the bladder that we never saw people doing in the past. Yeah. So I understand why people get overwhelmed because we have so many options. And, you sort of want to do the kitchen sink kind of thing with your dog, throw everything at them and something will stick and your dog will live forever.
Yeah.
The problem is that this is very expensive and it's very stressful because you don't know what's going to work, what's not going to work. You hear other people talk about what's working for their dog, so you want to adopt that. But then you see this review that talks about how great this product is, so you adopt that. Then you see an ad that's exciting, or you watch a webinar, and so you're adopting that. And you're buying. And it's just one of those where you don't need all of those things. And you're forgetting that we're feeding a dog. And that's the thing that keeps me from going crazy, is understanding that a dog's system is so smart. And when I think about if my dogs were wild, and it's not that I understand that they're domesticated pets, but if they were wild, they wouldn't be doing near the things that I'm trying to force into this species appropriate bucket that we've created. Yep. And so it helps me dial it back to focusing on what my individual dogs need rather than trying to solve the question of how do I get them to live forever?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're absolutely spot on. I also think that, tell me if you agree. I actually want to ask this as a question. Do you think COVID increased the anxiety of people?
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh, absolutely. It's in so many ways, and not just because of COVID, but because of the time period. So many things were coming out. I feel like we, as a global community, were a family that had opinions about each other that we kept to ourselves until the point where we just exploded. And so I think, we don't trust each other. We don't trust the media. We don't trust, industries. We think people are out to scam us for, it's easy to be mean. It's easier, I should say, to be mean because you have the support of other people. And I see people who, people have reached out to me to say they have a question, but they're terrified to ask in a group because they'll either be made fun of or someone will talk down to them, or even like someone that they respect and admire. They're terrified that this person is going to rip them to shreds. And the thing about it is that it's heartbreaking. And I don't say that as someone who is innocent in any way. We're all human beings. We all make mistakes, and how we come across on social media may not be what we intend. But it does make it so much harder. And that adds to a level of stress when it comes to feeding your dogs, because, we were taken away from our vets. Some communities lost emergency vet clinics. We did in our town. So if you have an emergency, you're driving for hours and you have 10-hour wait times, even now. And, and then on the social media side of it, you want to just get some type of, do some homework or get some type of clarification, because it's like, I can't get into the vet till tomorrow, but maybe I can somehow figure this out. But then you have a stranger come in and go, you should not be trying to diagnose this on Facebook. And it's like, I'm really not, I'm terrified and I'm scared and I want to learn.
Yeah.
And I also believe that as a society, and this is, X generation coming out, we never learned, or I just say younger generations never learned how to have a discussion where they could walk away friends, where they could agree to disagree. So there is this energy, and I do blame COVID for this as well, of if you do not agree with me, then that means you're attacking me. When it's just a matter of, no, we have different dogs. So what works for your dog isn't going to work for my dog. That doesn't mean that what you're doing is wrong. It just means that we have different dogs. And, but there is this worry of, people being afraid. I get daily questions in my messages because people don't want to ask them publicly because, and I think that I don't think it's any one person to blame for this. I just think it's the energy of social media.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I also think the whole period, I mean, it was a long period of, I love these cows in the background.
I know. I forgot to plug my computer in too.
Oh yeah. It happens. The other thing with regards to COVID is it was over a long period of time where I think also people were getting dogs for the first time, and just the thought of a dog being ill and this dog you love, and it 2 to 10x'd the emotions and the anxiety that everybody feels. I mean, we all feel it, all of us, whenever you love something, you want to keep it well. But I've just noticed it has changed, recently. And it's gotten much more, I feel like confidence has gone down, anxiety's gone up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
also during this time, you have everyone sitting at home and they have nothing better to do than to offer advice on social media. I mean, it's funny because one of my favorite programs right now is YouTube. I watch YouTube and watch YouTubers talk about each other. I'm just addicted to this. But what's interesting is how many YouTubers gained their popularity during the pandemic. Is like, I've been watching these people because I started watching movie reviews and stuff. And I didn't realize that these people, they were at home. So they started a YouTube channel. So a lot of people started a platform during the pandemic, setting themselves up as an expert. And, part of that to build your name is to join these groups and offer advice and help people out. And I think you're doing this in this, I think of it like Twitter. I think of Twitter as this room full of people all screaming at the same time. That's kind of like these groups as well, because someone will ask a question and they get 50 comments and, immediately. And it's just sort of like, and that, some of them will agree, but for the most part, you're getting a bunch of different opinions and no one is asking you follow-up questions.
Yep.
To learn more about what you need. And that in and of itself can be overwhelming. And, because I hear from people still who have been following me for years and they're still afraid to feed raw because they're still convinced that it's so hard and it's so complicated and they're just not sure that they can do it. And you know what? I just say it's okay because, take your time, you will get there. And I tell them, and once you get there, you'll see how easy it really is. But to me, I wonder what else are they paying attention to that is telling them, no, this is so hard, hard, that it has made them freeze to the point where they don't want to move forward.
Yeah, it's, this is the core of Dr. Billinghurst's whole mission in life, which is how do you, he likes to say it's absurdly simple, but so is a roast chicken that you make in the kitchen, but a really good one. It's French. It's got, there's a technique to it. But once you learn it, you go, oh my gosh, this is so simple.
Mm-hmm.
This is ridiculous. And look, I've never had a roast chicken this great before. So I think of it a lot like French cooking or even cooking, period. But, it's one of those things you have to give, a lot of people some background, and some people, the way they learn, we all know there's like engineer brains and there's creative brains, left, right. And there's, the highly analytical, the high information, low information person. A lot of people need history. So they need to feel like, okay, I get that these come from wolves. I'm looking at my dog. My dog is not a wolf. And I think that's the thing. I think we have to be reminded that this is coding over millions of years.
Mhm.
Dogs have only eaten kibble for like what, 150,
Yeah.
something like that.
Hmm.
It is not enough time to change the genetics of our dogs. And then you've got all these other things that the environment has
Yeah.
become that makes healthy food even more important. It's almost now the beginning of kibble, I think, when we had healthier, we didn't have things like glyphosate and a lot of toxins that we have in the world that are really at us every day. They are in our physiology. They're acting upon us. We need something with equal or opposite reaction that's healthy working against these things.
Hmm.
It unfortunately is the world we live in. And so it just requires us to be more diligent in our health. And there's no supplement that's going to, none that is going to be as good as a really good healthy diet. That's
Yeah.
first. So Dr. Billinghurst has been very keen on making this so that you understand, like, this is why your dog eats this way. Your dog is a scavenger. Your cat is a pure carnivore. This is why. And then when people understand this, they go, okay,
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable about this,
Yeah.
and then I can get into the actual nuts and bolts of it and, measurements. Everybody wants to dive into measurements, but they in recipes and such. And then what we find happens is, tell me if you see this, people get a hold of recipes and they go, well, this raw thing is no problem. And then all these questions start percolating up. And they have more questions than they have answers. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is way more complicated. Maybe I need another recipe. And they're searching for recipes. And then nobody wants to be cooking anything by recipe all the time, not for their family, not for their dogs, right?
Right. Exactly. It's overwhelming. It
Yeah.
really is. I mean, and what I found is when I was new to raw feeding, someone gave me a recipe. That recipe cost $100. I didn't get everything because I couldn't find everything. And it was one meal for 3 dogs.
Wow.
And that's what a recipe does. I mean, I truly don't think it's necessary to give a dog a recipe. I think that we could, there are days when I forget to thaw something out and my dogs get a bevy of, freeze dried and air dried treats and an egg and a can sardines.
Been there, done that.
And I'm perfectly happy with it. And I don't worry about it later in the day. Like, okay, so what did I do? And what am I missing? I don't worry about trying to make it up later in the day or later in the week. I just go about feeding the way I feed. I don't worry about it.
Yes. I've been there many times, and you have full faith and confidence, and you don't fret about it, and you certainly don't stress about it. Kimberly, we're going to pause because you're frozen.
I am.
Okay, but at least you're frozen on a good picture, not a bad picture.
I feel like I look bored.
No, you don't look bored. So let's do this. Let's pause. Okay, we fixed the video issue. Cool. But we heard what you said, and that was great. So let's talk about. We've talked, you and I, on DM and such about people and fermentation. So I have been very clear, very public about, I think every single dog should have some fermented foods in their diet. Now, I do not think every dog needs Gussie's gut. And I have also said that we could not feed all dogs. We just couldn't do it. Not the way we do it. We do everything by hand. We couldn't. You can do this on your own. You absolutely do not need us. You don't need to pay what we charge. You don't need to order from us. You never need to pay shipping at all. go to your grocery store, ferment, and just copy our formula. We use Redmond's Real Salt. I encourage you to use that and make it your own. Obviously, what we do is we provide a more optimized, we have a lot of ingredients, and we just save you from having to do that. And for those folks that really need that, we're here for you. But please, just do it on your own. We take a little sliver of the. If you go on our social media, you'll see our food pyramid. The little tip of the triangle is we call it dead, decaying, and like poop, things that dogs eat. Dogs eat poop of other animals. They eat grass. They eat other animals if they're on a farm. And the gut contents of their prey is really what we created our formula around, but in a very optimized way. They eat these things. These are disgusting, foul things. So we make something that's not foul. And we try to mimic nature. That's what you're doing when you're feeding raw, and it's what I'm doing, because we're going to the grocery store. We're not just letting our dogs chase a rabbit in the yard and kill it. I draw the line there. I don't think I can go there. But what I just want to tell people is you absolutely should do it. And I love your attitude about this. So can you share that with people?
Yeah, absolutely. The problem that I have with fermentation is time and cost, because although I could just get the regular vegetables, I want to get organic vegetables, and I want to be able to get as far away from the chemicals that are put on conventional farming. I want to get as far away from that as possible, because as you mentioned earlier, our dogs are inundated with just what's in the environment. And so if I'm going to do this, I want to do it right. And I used to ferment regularly, and I honestly hated the process. Absolutely hated it. It was a lot of work. It was expensive. Doing that and doing meal prep. Yeah. I would rather just spend my time doing meal prep. That's why I love Gussie's Gut, because you're doing something that I used to do, but better, and taking a step away. The only thing I have to do is pull it out, scoop it into a thing. I like to hydrate mine and mix it into my dog's food. And that's what I do. My dogs love it. Yeah. And I have seen the benefits in my dogs. But, I do understand that, like with many things, I understand I can just do that myself, because that's how I feel about raw. Although I do on occasion feed commercial raw, I like to have it on hand for when I'm sick or if I'm traveling. I don't want to have to be bothered, but I would much prefer to do DIY. I feel like I can make my dog's meals perfectly for the three of them myself. And I prefer to do that. I have the time, I have the knowledge, I have the resources to do that. So that's why I would prefer to do that way. I think ultimately, it's one of those things where I think people, when they see these products out there, and this is like with raw, with various supplements, with Gussie's Gut, people may not realize it, but they kind of feel like, oh, so this is another thing that I have to do. When it's not, it's just another option for you. And what I love about Gussie's Gut is that it's just something that I've added to the regimen. It's not something that, okay, this is all I'm doing and this is it. I mean, I like variety. I like shaking things up with my dogs, because I don't want them to get, I feel like if I'm doing the same thing over and over, it's like feeding beef and no other protein. It's just not going to do what my dogs need. And I think that for my dogs, Gussie's Gut has a particular role. And I feed it to support gut health, to keep Apollo's gut healthy, and to basically help them build a shield to the toxic environment that we're living in. It also supports the microbiome, but so do, when I add my own vegetables, or when I use a base mix, or when I use other products that are freeze-dried vegetables. All of these things have a role.
Yep.
They're not exactly the same thing. So what they're doing is just a little bit different. And when I alternate, I feel like I'm covering. It's sort of like when you take a can of paint and you just throw it onto the wall. And if you keep doing this with eventually you're going to cover the entire wall. And that's what I'm doing through alternating products with my dog.
That's an interesting visual. I think of it as a bullseye and multiple darts. Mm-hmm. And you can hit the bullseye one day with one dart. You can hit it with a few darts. You do not have to achieve a balance and a perfection at all every single day. Mm-hmm. And, I have told you, I've also been clear on our podcast, we don't want you using our product 365 days a year. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And we're back in this silly paradigm that we fight against, which is, you must do this supplement to keep your dog alive, or dogs, and so it's just, sometimes your dog needs more support. What are your dogs doing right now?
Bella she was taking a nap, but she's now awake and she found a ball.
Wait. Oh, okay. But is that Bella, the one that doesn't play with the ball?
No, that's Zoe.
Oh, Zoe.
Yeah. Bella is, Scout loved balls. And so I have a huge basket that's filled to the top with balls. And Bella recently just discovered her love of balls probably a couple months ago. And so now she's basically taking one ball out at a time and bouncing it to figure out which one she needs. And I think she's made her choice.
Okay.
So soon we shall hear some squeaking.
Okay, good. I've just got snoring on my end. He's over here. But I love this. There's a confidence and a calm over you that I feel. And, I share that with you, and I want people to get that. And, shameless plug, we have just come out with Dr. Billinghurst's course. It's actually quite a large program that is very easy to go through for busy people. And I'll throw it up here on the screen. It's Dr. Billinghurst's Institute this is like really, there's so many courses. I know yes. This, and there's so many programs ever since COVID, especially, but there's all these great platforms where you could take a course. If you go to this course of Dr. Billinghurst, you will leave like you and I. Mm-hmm. So that's the goal of this. It's to free you. It's to, what we really, really want for people is complete freedom. And that means confidence and calm. And, I always think about creating t-shirts, feed raw and carry on, just something that I just feel like, God, this is so important for the health of our dogs, either raw or cooked. I'm actually fine with cooked. It's so much better than, I just heard the squeaking. It's so much better than kibble. And so I'm like 100% in the cooked game, as long as it's real food. Mm-hmm. But raw's next level. Yeah. It's, I always think of everything from like junk tier to better to best to God tier. I call it God tier. And the best version of, I think, food for dogs, for cats is raw. I've been doing this for a couple decades. I've never had any of these issues that we see that people normally succumb to. Their dogs succumb to these horrible chronic itises and illnesses, and in this crazy hairs falling out, and their skin looks like a lizard, and chronic ear issues and all this. It's all coming from this foundation of processed food.
Yeah.
So,
and it's so, well, it's like everything goes back to the gut. It's a while ago I posted something about how I don't focus on the macro and micronutrients in my dog's diet.
right.
I focus on gut health. And the reason why I chose to look at my dog's diet that way was Rodrigo. We lost 2 dogs over, since 2020. We lost Sydney in 2020. We lost Scout in 2022. And Johan and I were like, how is it that Rodrigo's still with us? This is a dog that we were for sure was going to die first because he had so many health issues. But I spent all of my time focused on his gut health just so I can have a solid poop. Can I please have a solid poop, you dog? And I tried everything, and I adjusted his diet accordingly to make sure that he was getting what he needs. I educated myself on the foods that were going to feed the gut. And this is before I understood what the microbiome was. So I adjusted my other dogs accordingly as well. And now everyone eats that way, because I think that for my dogs, that is going to be the key. And to what you said, it really is a foundation of building everything on, is having that healthy gut microbiome. Because if the gut isn't healthy, it really doesn't matter what I feed. It's just, I mean, maybe it'll help a little bit, but I'm still going to be battling these problems. But if I can address the gut and get the gut health, make sure that I find what my dogs need. Because like with Apollo, he needs something slightly different than Zoe and Bella because of his leaky gut, but it's not that much different. But as long as I can support his gut, then everything else will be so much easier to deal with.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I'm so glad that, you said that, and about the gut, you didn't know that much about it. The first thing I thought of was, there is so much that none of us know about the gut. No one. And it's just because we don't have the equipment to test. We don't have the science, enough of the time. It's still like this new frontier, but we know enough that there, now it's in the, the common, it's becoming common knowledge that there's the gut-brain axis. Yeah. There's a gut-lung axis, gut-skin axis. So there is a huge amount that we don't know, but that always inspires me, because I'm very comfortable with what we don't know. And I don't need 12 studies to prove to me that, real food is better than processed food. Like, I don't need that science. Yeah. That doesn't make sense to me. And I also don't need to wait for the science to tell me that. Once I understand like fermentation, I just go, okay, so this is, we know enough to know like the food that's fermented is actually easier to digest. We know that it comes with all these pre, pro, and postbiotics. Great. We also know like it can help the absorption of the other things you eat with it, including possibly even pharmaceuticals. So what I like about, I'm very comfortable with taking small leaps without having, 3 peer-reviewed journals, as long as what I'm doing is healthy. Yeah. I'm moving in a wise direction, and there's no downsides or negative side effects or anything like that. Yeah.
That's, and I feel the same way. I mean, I understand why some people want to see the science and want to understand, and no shade, that's fine. Sure. I'm more of a, it's funny because they talk about anecdotal evidence, and, oh my gosh, we have, the anecdotal evidence.
Yep.
Are we still going? Okay. The anecdotal evidence, it doesn't really matter, but it's just sort of like, doesn't every big breakthrough start with anecdotal evidence? Doesn't it start with someone noticed something, and so they started testing it and trying it out? And I feel like all of us, regardless of what we're feeding our dogs, we have our own little independent study going on in our home. And with each dog that comes through, we're basically taking what we've learned in the past and applying it to the next dog and learning even more. And to me,
Yeah.
that's what's so exciting, is seeing like the ideas or the thoughts or the theories that we have, seeing it proven with the next dog. So sort of my thoughts about, focusing on the microbiome rather than stressing about, balancing the macro and micronutrients. I feel that I can do the latter over time.
Yeah.
But really focusing on that gut health, that's where I'm going to get the longevity. That's where I'm going to get, the healthier dogs. You mentioned earlier about the illness that's going around. The reason why I'm not freaking out is because I have put a lot of work into my dog's gut health and immune system. So I'm not going to throw them into a dog park and go, don't catch anything. But I also am not worried about them catching anything, because I have done the work. And I think that goes with a lot of things. I mean, of course, our dogs aren't going to be bulletproof, but going back to Rodrigo, he lived to 13 and a half, and he wasn't supposed to live long past his third birthday. And I credit that to feeding a fresh food diet and focusing on his gut health.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's a pretty big victory. Feels good though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Even more, like I have noticed that I first wanted my dogs, oh my gosh, I have these dogs that I love. I want them to live forever. Why can't, I had my first dog that I grew up with, when he passed away, and we had him put to sleep, and I was holding him in my hands, like looking at his face, cradling his cheeks. I was like 15, so almost 16, and I was devastated. I couldn't even believe it. Like how fast this came. I had him since I was really, really young. And I was just at this age, how like some people are very affected by a parent's divorce. And it seems to be around their early teens. The only thing I can think about is this so affected me at that age. I mean, really impacted me. I couldn't believe that the thing that I probably love the most in my whole life is having a dog.
Yeah.
And how fast it goes. And
Yes.
so I still can't even, everybody listening to this knows how I feel right now. We don't need to go into that. It's completely perplexing.
Yeah.
So I have been plagued since 15, and I am now 52. I've been plagued by this thing of like, how do I keep them living longer? So I've always been obsessed with these examples of dogs that live to 20, 25, 30. Mm-hmm. And it turns out, and by the way, like I was in the dog health business at the age of 15 and a half, 16, because I started reading books on longevity and anti-aging. That became my obsession. And I am not a book guy. I'm a C student in college. I just hated school. I just never did. I was always like very much a self-learner. And I threw myself into anti-aging and all of the, how do I keep these precious animals alive longer? Mm-hmm. So, the thing that we're now finding out, and we've known for a long time, is all of these animals that live really long, and it could be 18 years, it could be 20, it could be even 30. They're all living outside. They're all living on farms. Yeah. And we're all living, out in freedom. And a lot of that has to do with their brain and their stimulation and their connection to their to the wild and their instincts. It has to do with the microbiome being on raw soil and mm-hmm. being free, and also just eating a variety of things, including, it could be on a farm, chicken poop, cow poop, horse poop, lizards, rabbits, anything, squirrels. We don't want to think of our dogs doing that. No. So they're getting variety, they're getting nature, mm-hmm. and they're getting a really healthy, diverse microbiome. And we're also not seeing, P.S. by the way, we're not seeing when they have a bout of diarrhea. They just have it.
Yeah.
Or if they vomit up something, we don't see any of that. Yeah. And I always think about that too, because when I was raised, the dogs that I had growing up, they were always outside. And I always think to myself, geez, I know every single poop my dogs have. I see every single one. And I didn't, as it was coming out, I would just see it when it got hardened. We picked it up in the yard. It's very interesting how we've gotten so connected and also obsessive about every little bodily function our dogs have. And in fact, they've done fine for millions of years.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, when that story about Bobby came out earlier this year, and it didn't really I didn't bat an eyelash at it, another long living dog. After Maggie, after I think there was another dog, I was just sort of like, oh yeah, it probably lived on a farm, blah, 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 blah. But when people started questioning the dog's age, that's when I became very curious about the dog's life. I don't care how exactly old the dog is. To me, that's neither here nor there. It's clear the dog was old. I wanted to know what the dog's life was like. And
quality of life.
Yeah. And I had an opportunity to speak with a veterinarian in Portugal. We set up a time and she was like happy to answer all of my questions. I also spoke with a vet student who is, I think, in Sweden right now, who also spent a week with the family watching Bobby and seeing what his life was like. And it was so informative and just fascinating, because my thought was that why aren't more people interested in the details? Because it's sort of like if my neighbor had a cancer that people rarely survive,
bingo,
but they survived, we would, fall, everyone would swarm onto them to find out, what did you do? What were you doing? And not just, oh, well, I ate well and I laughed every day. No, we want to know, what were you doing when you were laughing? What exactly did you eat? And so learning more about his diet, what the things that weren't in the articles that I read were things like he would, because they said, oh, well, he walked around town. No, he would just take off. And he would be gone for a couple of days, just living his life. And, imagine, just basically what he was, what like what you were saying, the pause on the soil and the fact that, he lived outside, he ate outside, he lived differently. And the same thing with like Maggie and a lot of these other dogs that we hear about. As you said, they lived outside, they lived on a farm, they were exposed to so many things that our urban or even rural, for me, pet dogs are not exposed to. Our dogs are leashed up. They're, my dog didn't get anything going today because the weather was so crappy. Whereas if I were on a farm, I would kick them out and wouldn't care. My friend up she's a city north of me, her dogs were probably all over the place and eventually came home. And her dogs, kibble-fed dogs, her dogs live long lives.
Yep.
And I think that one of the reasons why is because of the fact that they are on a farm, they're surrounded by these other animals, they're allowed to roam and explore, and they're getting tons of exercise on a daily basis. There are all these other things. And that was what I found so very fascinating about Bobby's life. And it just really just reminded me how important it is for our dogs to be dogs. And while we may not be able to replicate everything that we see in the lives of these long living dogs, I think we can take some examples.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that was the thing. It was like, what is pollution like? What is the soil like there? There's so many things. Portugal is a different area than Marysville, Washington. So, I wanted to learn, and I'm so very grateful to people who were like, I want people to learn. So I had a page of questions and she answered every single one. And some of them seemed silly, but I wanted to know the details, because it's like, how did this happen? And I feel, after speaking to two people about Bobby, I feel pretty excited about the fact that, it is possible to have a dog that lives a long life. I just think that we need to make a lot of adjustments to how we live.
Yeah.
In order to do that.
I'm obsessed with make me crazy because if I start going down this thought is I want to see a pie chart with the slivers of how much of it, and you can't know this because it's just too many variables, genetics, epigenetics, location, all kinds of stuff, diet, of course. But I'm obsessed with like how much of that longevity of Bobby, let's just take Bobby as an example, is constant grounding. How much of it is mental stimulation? How much of it is peace, stress, less stress? I'm a big proponent of what everybody thinks. The gut is damaged by just antibiotics. I try to tell people boredom of your dog will kill their microbiome pretty slowly, but pretty bad. So will stress, fights in the home, going to a kennel they don't like, being constantly moved around if they're not used to it. And every dog's different. But mental is tremendous.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, all the stuff we've talked about, eating different grasses, being around, poop of other animals and, eating a dead animal that died that, it just stumbled upon it. It's like, yeah, I'm going to eat this. We'd be like, oh my God.
Been there, done that. And it's horrible.
So, all of those things, I'd love to see a pie chart that shows me the slivers in a magical, in a way that if I could wish it, would be so cool to see. But that's just, my silly human brain trying to oversimplify.
I totally get it though. I mean, because the thing about it is that everyone is doing something a little bit different. And for every story of a dog that lived a long life because he was fed fresh food and did all these things, you're also going to have the story like of the guy who, it was like the person who was a vegan and exercised every day and did marathons and they contracted cancer and died at 35. And then the guy who smoked a pack of cigarettes and drank a case of beer on a daily basis, didn't do any exercise, and lived until he was, 105. Yeah. I mean, it's just sort of like there's so many, I try to remind myself that, it's also, there's the genetics of my dog, but then the genetics of their parents and the parents before them, a whole piece of the puzzle that I just do not have access to. Yeah. That is driving what my dogs are going to do or what my dogs are doing. But it's still, I find it fascinating just talking to people and learning what they're doing. Because whenever I hear from someone who has like a golden retriever that's 18, I have questions. Let's talk. Because, and it's
like the Keith Richards of golden retrievers.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, we need to talk because that's the dog that's not supposed to be 18. But, you hear these stories. I want to know do the other, because that's like one question I have with some dogs is like, do the other dogs, like with Bobby, do the other dogs in that town also live long lives? Is this a regional thing? And so with the golden retriever, where are the litter mates? How old are they? I have a girlfriend of mine who has a Mastiff that's 15 and a half years old, and Thomas Sandberg, he had a rescue Dalmatian that I believe lived past 14 years old. Wow. So these things can happen. And these are dogs that were rescues and stuff. So you didn't know the history, but they were able to beat the odds. But it's just sort of like, when you hear these stories, let's have a conversation. It's like, I would like to see us get not so much go away from the longest living dogs when we talk about these things, but expand that conversation to include longer living dogs. Yeah. Because I think there's so much we can learn. And that's, I think, is where we will get your pie chart, where we start, comparing notes of what people are doing, like what areas of the country do they live in or the world, Are they in or near a blue zone, or are there blue zones for dogs, that, we're noticing? And I just want to know if they made changes, why? What was the impotence for it? Because I find it fascinating, the people who just naturally think it just made sense. for my dog to feed my dog this way.
Yeah.
Whereas other people need to lose a dog or come across an illness before they make a change. And so there are so many things, so many questions, so many questions I have.
Yeah. I mean, I think some dogs are so blessed and they could potentially just eat the worst kibble around. And it doesn't mean they're going to feel good.
Right.
And that makes me a little upset about that for that dog. It's like, if you eat McDonald's every day, you might survive if you're blessed genetically, but how do you feel when you get out of bed in the morning, and how's your sleep?
Yeah.
But the folks that live on farms and these big acres, and they don't see their dogs. There was a story I read of a dog ran away, was gone for a couple of days, lived on a farm, and came back with like I want to say it was like 2 deer. And the deer came back with the dog, and it's like, what happened there? It's crazy. And that's just that dog's life. And there may be some compensatory factors that, may be so beneficial that kibble is not as much of a problem. The problem that we have is if you love your dog, you want to optimize as much as you can, and you don't want to leave anything to chance.
And everyone I know who feeds kibble and has a dog that lives a long life adds fresh food to the bowl. Their dog, they're not just feeding kibble. They're adding other, like if they are making dinner for themselves, whatever is left over gets divvied out with the dogs. The dogs are getting tons of exercise. They're going hiking. They're running around 15-acre properties. I mean, I feel like there's a beautiful balance between meeting a dog's needs, like all of a dog's needs. Yeah. And the dogs are living a less stressful life as a result. And that is contributing to the longevity. Yeah, that's great. I found our little slide. I'm going to put it up on our screen real quick. Tell me what you think of this. This is on our social media at Gussie's Gut. Oh, very cool.
So tell me what you think about this. So the foundation, the most of the bowl should be raw meaty bones, fat, connective tissue, and of course meat. And then the organs, offal, less so, but more of, the next layer up. And then raw vegetables and fruits. And then your sort of, revolting, stinky foods, the gut contents of prey is what we try to mimic. Yeah. And that's the fermented foods. And you could see you don't need that much. Yeah.
What do you think about, when it comes to fermenting foods, about the variety there? Because I know that, when it comes to fermentation, we initially think about cabbage because of sauerkraut. But, when I used to ferment foods, that's another reason why I don't like to do it. It's because I tried to switch up the vegetables that I added each time to create just a different blend. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh, 100%. So here's the ideal scenario. And remember, my brain goes junk tier, better tier, best, God tier. So God tier is you're always changing the variety, and you're feeding local vegetables in your area. That's the best thing you can do. So you're switching them out, and they're local and they're in season. Now, that's even too difficult for me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I go to farmers markets and everything, so it's still a little too much for me. But you can still go to your store, buy organic, and the next level down is go buy organic and just switch them out. Do not just use cabbage at all. No, not just. Cabbage is amazing. It's wonderful. And it provides a tremendous amount of really important phytochemicals. But start picking out herbs and even grasses. You can throw wheatgrass in there. The great news is it doesn't have to taste that great really to you. Yeah. You wouldn't make it for you. You're making it for your dog. So we put in there I've before I started Gussie's Gut, I was doing this on my own. So I was literally getting so crazy. I was throwing pomegranates and goji berries, and I was doing crazy stuff. And I, like you, just got frustrated. But I was also doing, in between, I was doing some pickling.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that too. Like somebody like you and me, like we're realists. We just go, you know what? This is a hard week for me. I've got to catch a plane on a Tuesday. I'm going to whip up some pickled vegetables, and that's that, So I think for a week, that's fantastic. Just you can do a 2-hour pickling really quick. So I think that, and doing fruit, and you could do some fruit. You have to be careful with fermentation. You can't do too much sugar, too much fruit, and you can't do, unfortunately, a lot of fat. You can do some fat, but you can't do a lot. So I've also put nuts into fermentation, and I think we're going to plan on doing that pretty soon with Gussie's, is do some other mixtures, and they will incorporate some nuts. Some stuff you can't get except for nuts. You can't get those nutrients. They're just amazing.
Yeah.
And so, 100% rotation is great. In the case of our formula, I mean, we're really clear. We've always said from the beginning, you should not be feeding our product 365 days a year. You should be taking breaks. It is a tool. And what can I say? We try to provide a service, but if you take that too far, you get away from the intention. And our intention is, look, we're not in this to make a ton of money. You can't do that when you're fermenting by hand. I mean, we literally have, we could be doing things, selling supplements that make way more money, and they're way more profitable. We're in this for health. We're in this for, we want to serve a population that says, I do understand a little bit about fermentation, but I don't want to do it. And, I want something good. Yeah, me, So I, I tell a story. I used to, I bought these big ball glass jars. That's how I did my fermentation for Gus. And, you only have to knock it down once on the floor in the pantry, and it has red beets that stain the grout. You only have to do that once to be like super frustrated. So I that's all we want to do. And I've said clearly, we cannot feed the world. We can't feed all the dogs. That's not what our intention is to do. But I'd love to use the company to inspire people to do their own fermenting. And I think it just makes for the health of the planet, and I hate to say common sense, because what does that even mean? I mean, it's good sense to be able to tell people, please get some fermented into your dogs. Do it at home. Do it from local farms. Oh my gosh. It's a way we really should be purchasing our foods, I think, that in a way that's sustainable and long-term.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Yeah. This is supposed to be part one of our topic. So, we've done one whole show that maybe we'll divide, maybe we won't. But I feel like we've done both parts, haven't we?
Yeah, I think we covered everything.
We sure did. And this may be almost my longest show that I've ever done, because normally they're an hour. Yes. This has been just thoroughly easy and wonderful to talk to you, Kimberly. What last thoughts do you have? Parting thoughts?
I think my parting thoughts would be, hello, Apollo. The best piece of advice I ever got, and this is the piece of advice that helped me stop stressing about feeding my dogs, was to feed the dog in front of me. I spent so much time comparing what I was doing to beautiful bowls shared on Instagram, or what other people were able to feed. They were able to find these great deals on different proteins, and I wasn't able to feed that. And it was stressful. I felt like, I'm not doing enough when I was doing more than enough. because when you focus on the dog in front of you, it keeps you from overspending. It keeps you from stressing out because you know what your dog needs. And that's the other thing, is that no one is an expert in my dogs except for me. And maybe their veterinarian, but I'm the one that I'm with them 24/7. You know, I know exactly what every bark means. I know what every sigh means. I know what they can and cannot eat. If they are, you know, hot boxing me out of the room with gas, I know exactly what I fed them that resulted in that. I am the expert. So it's just like, I want people to just start trusting themselves, stop second guessing, don't race to social media to get validation, actually trust and see it through.
Yeah.
And you will be so amazed that every single time you see things through, it becomes a little bit easier every single time, because you are the expert. You can do this. This is not rocket science.
Well, I agree not to FOMO feed ever. It's really, I see all these bowls. They're amazing. I just like recently when I saw a bowl with, it was like hemoglobin powder. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's blood? That's freeze-dried blood?
I have it. Yes, I have it. And I am obsessed with it. Obsessed.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, all of a sudden, like our dog bowls have become, and it's so cool. And it's what I think, obviously, look, we all know these people. These people don't feed like this every day.
Yeah.
You know, this is presentation. This is inspiration. This is like, how else can you inspire people? Because you put these varieties in, but, you know, for the love of God, I mean, you do not have to have this standard every single day. If people saw my bowls most days, you know, I put my hands in them. I want them to be mixed up. They're ugly. They're horribly ugly.
Ugly bowl Mondays.
Yeah. And this is just
we need to normalize the ugly bowl. I actually did a video, I need to put it up this weekend, where I basically tried to be fancy and just show me, you know, so I did a circle of the fish oil on the plate, and then I put some shiitake mushroom powder over the fish oil, and then just slowly presented everything. And it's like, my dogs don't care. And it ended up ugly anyway. But it's to me, it's to have fun. You know, I like to just have fun with it. I became obsessed with the freeze-dried blood because it sparkles. It has little sparkles in it. But I have some in my pantry.
Well, and then there's that super blue algae.
Yes. I've just noticed that. I mean, it looks like food coloring, and it's like so kind of cool. But I'm fine. I'm fine with my spirulina and chlorella.
Yeah, right. But I mean, it's you know, I think the message that we have for everyone today, which I hope we've helped some people, and we will help people who watch this, is you can relax and do it. And look, for everybody, as far as I'm concerned, for anybody who wants to be a more confident, calm feeder, please check out Kimberly's blog. And that website, by the way, is keepthetailwagging.com. And then, of course, if you ever want to come, just check out Dr. Billinghurst's social media. He's the father of raw. He's the guy who, you know, he just celebrated 30 years of the raw food movement.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so just, you know, you can check out the Billinghurst Institute. I didn't know this until recently. Institute is a replacement for .com.
Is it really?
It's another, yeah. So Billinghurst.institute, www.billinghurst.institute. And so we'll continue to help inspire people and educate people and you know, take a little bit from all sorts of different sources. And, you know, I think it's difficult for some people because they get into like, you know, that's that psychological principle, the paradox of choice. If you have too many choices, you get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't work for you, focus on somebody who's as closely aligned to your philosophy. If that's Kimberly, focus on some of the things she's talking about. Go back to her past blogs. Something I always forget is like, oh my gosh, you could just read past blogs and.
Yep. I have a search bar on my website.
You have a search bar. So yeah. So anyway, it's been great to chat with you, and thank you very much for spending an hour and 24 with me today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching all this way. If you like this show, please subscribe to our channel and certainly like the episode and make a comment in there. If you have any questions, we'll make sure they get to Kimberly also. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.